Hello, welcome to TVC Media News. We're staying with the development following the announcement of the reshuffling of President Bola Tinubu's cabinet. The president has sacked 5 ministers and nominated 7 persons to head different ministries in his cabinet. He also reassigned 10 ministers to other ministries. State House correspondent Femi Akonde has more in this report.
President Bola Tinubu's first Federal Executive Council meeting after his 2-week working leave threw up a bit of surprise. But it was also highly anticipated. A cabinet reshuffle that will reposition the administration at a time when approval ratings appeared to have dipped. 5 ministers were relieved of their appointment and 7 more nominated as ministers, while several others were reassigned portfolios within the federal cabinet. President Bola Tinubu scrapped the Ministry of Niger Delta and approved the creation of the Ministry of Regional Development that will oversee affairs of all regional development commissions in the country. The Ministry of Sports Development was also taken out. Likewise, the Ministry of Tourism that has now been merged with the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy. Also, after a 10-month vacuum, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation will finally get a minister, following the sack of Betta Edu in January.
The Federal Executive Council has taken a decision to take that Ministry of Tourism out and the functions of that ministry be transferred to a new ministry called the Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy. The President and members of Council today took a decision to rename that ministry so that all these other regional bodies will come under this new Ministry of Regional Development.
The minister of the defunct Ministry of Niger Delta made some clarifications regarding the nomenclature of the new Ministry of Regional Development, insisting it is without prejudice to the Niger Delta region.
For our people over there in the Niger Delta region, I would like them to know that that has not removed anything from them. The NDDC is still very much in place, which is still under the Ministry of Regional Development, and all other such agencies are there. It's just a question of change of nomenclature. That is what has been done. And I wouldn't want anybody in that region to begin to feel that the Ministry of Niger Delta has been scrapped and is no more in existence.
The cabinet reshuffle may be part of recommendations submitted in a report by Hadiza Bala Usman, Special Advisor to the President on Policy and Coordination. She is saddled with the responsibility of appraising the performance of the ministers. Hadiza Bala Usman launched the Citizens Delivery Tracker app, which is the first digital app that empowers citizens to rate ministries, departments and agencies. It is unclear the kind of impact citizens had in the process or if their input influenced the decision to retain or sack ministers. In the coming days, the list of the 7 newly nominated ministers will be sent to the Senate for screening. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's give you a breakdown of the cabinet reshuffle as announced by the president. The 5 ministers discharged by the president are Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Kennedy Ohaneye, Minister of Tourism, Lola Adejohn, Minister of Education, Professor Tahir Maman, Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development, Abdullahi Gwazo, and Minister of Youth Development, Jamila Bio Ibrahim. 7 fresh names have been nominated by President Tinubu for ministerial positions, subject to confirmation by the Senate. And Tawe Yilwatda was nominated as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Mohammed Dingyadi as Minister of Labour and Employment. Bianca Ojukwu has been nominated as Minister of State Foreign Affairs. Jumoke Oduwole as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Idi Mokhtar Meha will head the Ministry of Livestock Development. Others are Yusuf Atta, nominated as Minister of State, Housing and Urban Development, and Suwaiba Ahmed as Minister of State for Education. And President Tinubu has also reassigned some ministers. Current Minister of State for Education, Yusuf Sununu, is now Minister of State, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Current Minister of State for Health, Tunji Alausa, is now Minister of Education. Bello Goronyo, who is the current Minister of State for Water Resources and Sanitation, is now Minister of State for Works. Others are Abubakar Momo, who is the current Minister of Niger Delta Development, has now been reassigned to the Ministry of Regional Development. Minister of State for Steel Development, Uba Ahmedu, is now Minister of State Regional Development. Current Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Doris Uzoka Anete, is now Minister of State for Finance. John Eno is now Minister of State for Trade and Investment. Imam Sulaiman Ibrahim was formerly Minister of State for Police Affairs, and she will now be the Minister of Women Affairs. Ayodele Olawande has been reassigned to the Ministry of Youth Development, and Salako Isiak is now Minister of State for Health. In another development, another statement by Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, necessary directives have been issued on the implementation of the President's directive. He also mentioned that all handover and taking over processes are expected to be completed before the 30th of October 2024. In the case of ministries where there are no ministers to take over, the outgoing ministers are to hand over to the permanent secretaries. And Special Advisor to President Bola Tinubu on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, says the cabinet reshuffling of the president is to bring more development in the country. He stated this on Beyond 100 Days while confirming that the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Betta Edu, has been discharged of her duties with the recent appointment made by the president to the ministry.
The president, for whatever downturn the country faces, and he too has been putting pressure on his ministers to perform. And just before he went on vacation, he actually asked them to go out there to tell the Nigerian people what they have been doing. Because as he told them then, the report he keeps getting was that the ministers are not, that the government was not performing. He knows the government is performing. And the ministers need to come out there to project what the government has been doing since last year, May. The president today appointed or nominated a new minister of humanitarian affairs. So that's, without saying anything, that shows that it's not going to be possible for Dr. Betta Edu to return to this cabinet. I think the case has already been concluded.
Now, Director General Center for Advanced and Professional Studies, Professor Anthony Killer, is in Cambridge, England, and he joins me on the news for more insight into these recent developments. Thanks so much for joining us on the Midday News, Professor Killer. But first, let me get your initial reaction to this cabinet shakeup. Did it, to some extent, meet your expectation?
Many of us. I think a lot of people are even wishing for it. So the good thing is that we know that this president can actually move people, because the one that was there before seems to write everybody's name in pen, and he couldn't clean it or delete it or erase it when time needed. So clearly, this one can change them. There's no surprise for the people he has removed. I mean, generally speaking, his cabinet, none of them comes to my mind as exceptional. I must say that. I've not been particularly impressed by any of the ministers in Tinubu's cabinet. But these ones that have been let go, and I would like to use the word sack, not because I want to mock them, but because I want people to know what it means to lose your job so that we can inspire other people to do it well. This one that has been sacked, they've been let go either because they've been tainted of incompetence or inefficiency or non-influential, or worse still, because they've been tainted with some sort of scandal or the other. So yes, it's a good move. And my other observation is the restructuring of the executive government in terms of ministry and commission, which I support. This is a bit embarrassing because I always like to criticize the president But, you know, these moves, I tend to agree with most of what they've done here.
Well, if you look at Hadiza Bala Mohammed, she was the first to launch the Citizens Delivery Tracker app, which enables the citizens to give their own assessments of all the ministries. But we are not sure how much impact the citizens' feedbacks, influence the cabinet shakeup. What's your view on this?
Well, we're not sure. We also have to be very careful to say she was the first person to launch it. That idea has been hovering around in the civil society and the academia way before she entered office. So, and also before Tinubu, before Buhari, the Jonathan government attempted to do, a performance index pack with the government. Even we did that in my institute about 10 years ago. So it's not the first. It's not as original as some people want to make it. It's a good thing, but it's not original. But we don't know the influence. But one thing we can't say is this. None of these ministers that have been sacked has made everybody say, oh, what a surprise, or what a shame. To that extent, that kind of certainty in act of government and connection with the people is a welcome development. You know, there's nobody that's going to be missed out of this one. You know, I wish I'd be better life, but I think they were probably overwhelmed or unlucky in the positions they were given.
That's right. But then if you look at the current economic reality and the dire need to address the impact of reforms introduced by this administration, especially the backdrop of economic protests, do you think this move will restore public confidence, or are deeper policy shifts needed to address Nigeria's pressing challenges?
Well, I think you can only know if it's going to improve things after they've acted, although you can judge them from the first statements they make starting from this weekend. But overall, it will depend on their action, and of course, what they say matters. But I personally believe that the situation where the country, a bit of changes is not enough. Mild reform is not enough. I think we need some very radical moves. I've advocated, and I've said directly to the president, I've advocated for an economic emergency recovery plan. You know, something that is very targeted at resuscitating the economy, that will link the problem of the availability and the affordability of foodstuff to that of security and to that of creation of job and wealth. You know, you need a sort of matrix, a group of people and policies that are strictly targeted to increase job, wealth, reduce cost, and make food and other goods or services available to most people.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for your insight. We'll continue to monitor trends and reactions to these recent issues coming from the federal government as against what the Nigerian people are actually expecting. Thank you so much. Director General, Center of Advanced and Professional Studies, Professor Anthony Killer. Thank you. Now, following the recent cabinet